today in the person of Damilare Omosebi. Damilare is an ISO 27001 lead implementer. He is an ISO 27001 lead auditor and a certified ethical hacker. Please, can we in the chat room give a round of applause as we welcome Damilare to take up this session? Damilare, please, you can take it up from here.
All right, thank you so much for that warm introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Trust we're having a fantastic day. And as editor said, I'm going to take you guys through ISO 27001, which we call Information Security Management System. And so I have my slides here that we're going to work with, and I don't know, maybe anyone can just give me an overview of what they think ISO 27001 really addresses. Is there anyone that can really help us, just to set the foundation for our conversation today? Is there anyone that wants to help us to just enlighten us a bit about what we understand about information security management system? Is there anyone? Anyone want to help us out?
Please feel free to put up your hand and we'll unmute you to speak, or you can put your response in the chat room as well.
Exactly. That's a good idea as well. All right, so let me share my screen so we can really go swiftly into the business of the day. Just a minute, sorry. Trying to bring my screen up. Okay. Yeah, can we all see my screen, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right, so I asked a question. I don't know if anyone has responded yet, but when we talk about information security management system, we are looking at a scenario where after having let me say, percentage amount of infrastructure, and when I mean infrastructure, I'm talking about maybe our network, maybe our database, maybe our core applications, as the case may be, and we have them running. So there is need for us to have a certain level of security around them, because we don't want a scenario where everyone has access to our network, everyone will have access to our database, everyone will have access to the core application, as the case may be. So the concept behind information security is we want to make sure that when it comes to certain infrastructure within the organization that we make use of, that we have selected persons that have the privilege rights to access those information. And also we put some measures, some security measures on ground to make sure that unauthorized persons does not really have access to information that they are not supposed to have access to. So that's more like a layman definition of what I would call information security management system. But as we go on in the conversation, we are going to be seeing most of what this conversation really entails. So this is part one of the course. And so here, topic covered, we are going to be talking about introduction to information security management system, the concept as required by the standard. I don't know, can anyone also, maybe on the chat box, can anyone just put what we understand? What is ISO? What does ISO mean? Anyone want to help us out? Maybe in the chat box, please help us out. I want this class to be a conversation so that we can interact together. It's not just going to be a one-directional conversation. So somebody in the chat box, just tell us exactly what's ISO, what's the acronym, what does it mean, ISO? So another thing also we are looking at also in these engagements, we are going to be introducing, we are talking about the definition, benefits and principles of information security management system. So these are the conversations that we are going to be having today. Then the learning objectives span across, understanding the elements and the operation of an information security management system. So we want to know the components, things that comes together to form what we call the information security management system, and how the operation of this component exactly, how we can integrate these different components together to form a whole larger body, which we call the information security management system. And also we want to acknowledge correlation between ISO 27001 and 27002 and other standards and regulatory frameworks. So here we are looking at, because the basic idea when we talk about information security management system, what comes to mind is ISO 27001. But then a lot of people do not understand that the 27002 is the controls, what some of us call the clause 8 of the clauses of the 27001. So it's more like the action itself, the actionable plan or controls that we put in place with regards various segments of the organization. Maybe it comes to the physical controls, maybe it comes to the organizational control, or in terms of the technical controls, or the people control entirely. So those are the methodology that we look out for in that regard. Then also we understand the approaches and standards, then methods and technique used for the implementation and management of ISMS. Because one of the baseline is when we are trying to implement information security management system, first thing we need to do is we want to do something we call gap assessment or gap analysis. It means that we have a proper understanding of what the standard or the requirements of the standard is. Then we benchmark it based on what is existing within the organization in view. And we see exactly areas that need to be covered, and we check it from that standpoint. Then from there, we can come up with a report and know exactly what to do to make sure that such an organization, in terms of implementation of the ISMS, that they are that they meet up with certain requirements as described in the ISO 27001 framework. So, so if we look at this general management system clause, now this applies to most of the ISO clauses. That means we have clause 4 to 10. So clause 4 to 10, in some regard, there are some parts that are uniform, but then when it comes to, like for instance, when it comes to context of the organization, which means understanding the whole organization, understanding what the organization is into, understanding the organogram, something we call the organogram, which explains hierarchy of the organization, maybe from the top management, the MD or the board, or how hierarchy cascade from the top down to the least persons or in the organization. So we want to have a proper understanding of such an organization. So the first thing that the standard requires is we understand the context of the organization. And it's under this context that we know so many other things that we get to know. C4.2 said we should understand the needs and expectation of the interested parties. So while trying to understand the needs and expectation, the first thing also we need to identify is we want to understand certain issues that exist within such an organization. We want to know if we have internal issues or external issues, as the case may be. Now, internal issues might be that maybe salary increments, or maybe there's no how do I put it? There's no motivation for staff within the organization, and maybe external issues might be government regulations, policies that is affecting, maybe it's in the banking sector, policies that is really affecting their smooth sailing of the businesses, as the case may be. So those are the things we look at under issues. Then when it comes to needs and expectation, first of all, we need to identify interested parties. And interested parties could be internal or external as well. So internal starts from the board, the top management, that's from the staffs of the organization. For a bank, we are looking at CBN, we are looking at EFCC, we are looking at ICPC. We are looking at all those bodies that are interested in one way, or probably there is an affiliation between the organization and such respective bodies. So we're now looking at what are the needs and expectations of those interested parties with regards to our implementation of information security on them, or on our organization. So that's what 4.2 really addresses. Then when we look at 4.3, it talks about determining the scope of the management system. So it means that as we are trying to implement the management system in the organization, what is the scope? Now, for an organization that have multiple branches, maybe they have international company, that they have a branch in Nigeria, branch in other countries, as the case may be. Now, the scope of that implementation might be for that space, or maybe for that country, maybe for Nigeria alone, as the case may be. It might just be for Nigeria alone that they are trying to implement this management system. So the scope will cover that geographical area. And also scope is bigger than just area. It means that, number one, we are looking at maybe in terms of technological equipment, or probably tools that they make use of, or core applications that they make use of, or their core business applications that they make use of. So we are looking at the coverage of what is the span, or what boundary does the management system have, as the case may be. So in most times, the scope is always covering most of all business aspects of such organization. So that addresses the scope. Then for management system, so management system here, what the standard really expect us to know here is interaction between different processes, as the case may be. Maybe it comes to information security now. What are the processes that are involved within the organization that is necessary for us to have interaction with? And that's where sometimes there's a statement of applicability document, or probably something we call statement of applicability, that really help us to really understand the in-depth nature or full analysis of how we can really interact different processes, as the case may be. Because that statement of applicability made us to understand what particular controls is being adopted within the organization as prescribed by the standard itself. So this is more like an interaction between those different entities, so that we can have a broader understanding of how each of them interact together. Because the goal is that every of those processes we align with the set goal of information security management system as the benchmark. So that interaction is going to be in form of information security is at the center point of that interaction. So that's what we look at under 4.4. Then for 5.1, here we want to look at leadership and commitment. So this is more like a responsibility of the top management or the board in question. We want to see exactly the set of leadership approach in which they are showing towards the management system, the commitment towards it. Because most of the time, we do tell organizations that when it comes to implementation, 40% is required from the, as in 40% availability is required from the consultant. 40% is required also from the client side. That means their own respective implementers from their end. Then 20% is required from the top management or the leadership. And why? Because if the leadership is not involved in the project, definitely that project is not going to see the end of the day. It's not going to be effective. So it means that it is driven from the top management downward, and it's everyone's responsibility in the organization. It's not just, there's a school of thought that believe that when we talk about management system, or probably when we talk about information security management system, that this is an IT-related issue. That's just the IT department that should deal with this, and everyone else should relax. The truth of the matter is everyone has a responsibility when it comes to information security management system. And we can see this from the level of controls that we have. We have one that speaks about the organizational control. So that means the top management need to be involved, because there are some controls that need to be in place that the top management themselves will drive. When it comes to people's control, we have the that deals with the HR in terms of maybe terms of employment, the set of analysis that they perform before bringing people into the organization. They want to make sure that certain information are gotten well, that we don't end up bringing someone who has a criminal record into the organization. Or maybe the person worked in an organization before and defrauded the organization. And if we don't carry out something we call background check on such a person, and we bring in that person into the organization, there's tendency they can perform the same action. And these all are responsibility of the leadership. So they have to carry out that responsibility within their space. Then also policy. The idea behind policy is for an effective ISMS, or for an effective information security management system, as the case may be, there need to be certain policies that need to be put in place. And those policies could be topic-specific policy, or they could be the ISMS policy in general. And these are more like a guideline that the organization needs to follow, so that they don't, they don't fall into some things that they do not plan for. And one of the policies, like we can talk about password policy, for instance. So that means that if the organization has determined that the password, the length of the password that we are going to be using is going to be 4 characters, for instance. So, and someone else is using 2 characters. Definitely, such a person is not obeying such requirements, or is not adhering to such policy. And in that regard, the reason why the top management also, or the leadership, will come into that is for every policy that has been stated, if anyone violates that policy, there should be a kind of punishment for anyone violating the policy. Like, for instance, maybe social media or internet usage policy, for instance, and it has been addressed that everyone should not, probably during the working hour, anyone should not go on websites that are not edible for work, or they are not related to work. And during work time, you see someone going to, doing some other thing except something for the purpose of work. Definitely, there will be a kind of rule that we address that such a person needs to be addressed properly, or probably maybe a punishment, a rule that, and such a rule also will be communicated, that anyone who violates will know that, okay, yes, I have violated this rule, and these are the punishments. So these are actually most of the responsibilities of the top management with regards to the policies that they put on ground. Then 5.3 talks about organizational roles, responsibilities, and authorities. Here we are looking at when we are trying to implement management system or information security management system, there are certain persons that we had do certain responsibilities, and there are authorities also within that roles that they have. For instance, we might have the ISMS manager, we might have the CISO, we might have data protection officer. We can have different positions like that. Now, that position is not support, or probably it's not mandatorily to be someone of hierarchy in the organization. When I mean hierarchy, I mean it's not compulsory we should make the chief operating officer the CISO if they don't know exactly or probably they are not available to carry out the responsibility at all time. So you might, in an organization, they might decide to go for someone who is maybe they just employ the person should be the ISMS manager, and there are responsibilities that is being highlighted for such a person is that, okay, yes, within this role that you're occupying, these are the things you're expected to do. And these are the authorities that you have. And based on those authorities, the authorities sometimes, because the concept behind the authorities is if within that role, they are supposed to make sure that information security is being adhered to at the organization across board. And now, if someone who is in terms of hierarchy within the organization now defaulted, now their authority in that role might warrant them to respectfully question, such kind of acts from that senior role. But then that's why in most cases, most people that fit into that role are people that are in, a bigger position in the organization. But sometimes we don't really get the real delivery or delivery from such person. So that's why it's something that anyone could occupy, but they should understand the nitty-gritty behind the roles and the responsibility. So there must be certain persons that can really carry out this responsibility, as the case may be. So if you look at 6.0, it talks about planning. We look at actions to address risk and opportunities. Now, when we talk about information security management system, the idea behind information security is because at some point we have envisaged that there is a tendency for some risk. If, for instance, we just have our database, we have our network, we have our core application just open to everybody, automatically there is tendency that someone will affect those platforms, or probably someone will just maybe they are not trained to really navigate through that applications or database, as the case may be. They could really cause a lot of harm, as the case may be. So that's the reason why we conduct something called risk assessment. So 6.1 really addresses risk and opportunity. So we look at risk, that okay, what are the risks in, for instance, if we have an asset, for instance, we have yes, our core application. We have our core application, and we are looking at it from the standpoint that, okay, what is the risk that could really come from this core application? What are the risks that we can really see from this core application? So we conduct our risk assessments in that regard to make sure that we are preparing before time. So information security risk assessment or management system risk assessment, it's more like it's a proactive measure, something that we do before time. So in most cases, we don't have to wait for such things to happen or such threats to affect our organization, as the case may be, before we start conducting the risk assessment. So it's more like we look into those assets themselves and we envisage, okay, what are the level of risk that we can see from these assets, and we do some analysis on it, and we make sure that we put some controls and measure in place so that those risks will not occur, or probably it will reduce the possibility of that risk to a larger percentage. So if we look at 6.2, say management system objectives and plan to achieve them. Management system objective and plan to achieve them. Now, one of the things that we look at under the organization, under the context of the organization, which is 4.1 also, is we try as much as possible to understand the business objective of the organization. Like when I mean business objective, it means that every organization have an agenda for every year. They have something that they want to achieve every year. They have something that they plan to, they achieve to achieve every year. So based on those objectives, then we as an implementer, we look at it from a standpoint that yes, maybe organization want to double their income, they want to improve on their branding, they want to do all those things. Those are the objectives that they have. So one way or the other, we fine-tuned it to be a management system objective. And this objective could be, maybe we want to reduce costs, for instance, we want to, do more training. Maybe we realize that a lot of people are not really understanding the usage of, maybe we are transitioning, for instance, into a digitized mode of working compared to where we are coming from. Maybe everything we do before was on paper. The database that we have, everything was strictly on paper, and we want to digitize everything. And most people are finding it difficult to really transition into that digitization. So we make that we in that objective, we make sure that yes, maybe we need to do a training or retraining for each of those platforms that we are going to be used for that digitization for our staff, as the case may be. So then those are the objectives. Then we look at the plan to achieve that objective. We set out plans like, okay, this objective, okay, when exactly do we want to carry it out? What are the things to do? When exactly are we doing it? Now, if we say the objective is we want to make sure that we carry out training. Now, how do you plan that training? So that means there's going to be a training calendar. as the case may be, that okay, these also persons, they are going to be trained on this particular thing, because there's tendency everybody might not be working. Maybe the side of the application that we are training people on is not everybody that is supposed to focus on that. So we have different segments for different persons. So we schedule it in such a way that this segment will be the training for this segment will happen this day, and we assign people that are supposed to be in that training, and we put a timeline as well to the plan, because when you're talking about plan, definitely there should be an identification of the timing. When exactly do we want to achieve the objectives, as the case may be? So we put in all those things. So those are the things we look at under 6.2. And so for 6.3, we look at planning changes. So in an organization, or probably when it comes to information security management system entirely, there are certain changes that one might want to implement. Like for instance, if I am managing the network, for instance, I'm managing the network, and I know that or probably maybe I have a conversation with maybe the CISO, and I've been instructed to do some changes as a case may be. So those changes, they must be planned. So we can't talk about change and say, okay, because I want to change something, I should just do it without the knowledge of, or probably I should just disrupt the free flow of business, as the case may be. So changes is not done. It has to be planned. And in planning, you have to make sure that at that point in time, the business must not stop. The business must not stop. So everything that we are going to put, maybe you are trying to, change a password, and I'm sure most of us will experience in most of the time that probably we get a message from our local operators, maybe our OSPs, that they want to do some network upgrade for a particular period of time. And we wait, they'll tell us that, okay, within this period of time, they want to do an upgrade, that you are not going to get service. So it's more like they want to make a change, or probably they're trying to do some patches, as the case may be. So at that point in time, they are trying to make a change, and we will not gain access to that platform within that time. So that's to explain to us that whatever changes that we are trying to implement within the concept of management system or information security management system, those changes has to be planned. They has to be planned. The 7.0 really addresses resources. 7.0 addresses support. And under support, 7.1, we are looking at resources. Now, for every activities that is going to be done under information security management system, we need certain resources. We either need human resources. Those are the people that occupy the roles, organizational roles also. We need financial resources. We need technological resources. So everything that we need to have an effective implementation and adoption of information security management system, these are the resources that we need. These are the resources that we need. Then for 7.2 talks about competence. Now, we don't just bring in people just because we want to fill in the space. Now, we should have competent persons that will undo certain responsibility. Now, competency has to be, for instance, if you are handling data, for instance, some person handling data should have an idea about Data Protection Act. That person should understand the importance of data, or should understand the risk when such a data is in the wrong hand. Like for instance, if I work for bank XYZ now, and my competitor is bank ABC, the information of the clients that I have with me must not be leaked to bank ABC. Why? Because if that information is leaked, definitely it could expose my weakness, or expose my organization's weakness at large. So I should be trained, or probably I should have the competence, I should have a prior knowledge. For instance, also, if I say the organization needs somebody that will work as a database administrator, and all I do is I'm just a network configure. I configure network, and that's all I do. And I don't have that competence to really fit into that database. Then I might learn that competence. I might go through a series of classes and all that. But then at the time, I don't know those things. So that's the area for competence, that the right person. As the day goes by, there are several issues that are happening. There are several things that are going on. There are several, information security is moving. It's not something that we just have a knowledge base and we work on that knowledge base and that's all about it. No, information security is a growing field. So that means at every point in time, there are things that are happening that we need to keep ourselves aware about. So the concept behind awareness is we all need to, the organization at large need to keep everyone aware, maybe of the latest threats, threats. Like for instance, most people don't know that you can, once you click any link, they call it phishing. Once you click any link, there's tendency for that link to gain access, or probably someone behind has configured a malware behind a picture, for instance, and once just decide to click on that picture, as the case may be. So once you click on that picture, definitely it might affect you one way or the other by maybe they've put in some configurations to gain access to your IP address or to know the location or to on your webcam, as the case may be. So it's always advisable during an awareness session that don't click links that you don't know about. Don't click on mail. Maybe you're not expecting a mail from people. I'm sure so many of us we have experienced sometimes that we just see a mail. Somebody will just send us a mail and say, "Congratulations, you have won 500 million naira." And because we are looking for 500 million naira, we just want to click the link. And once we click that link, we become a bait for such kind of attack, as the case may be. So one, we need to be aware that that awareness session needs to be carried out over time based on latest security trends, as the case may be. Then also communication. There's need for adequate communication. There's need for adequate communication there should be a plan of how we want to communicate most of, like, for instance, if we are saying within our organization, we want to perform communication. Now, we should have a platform or platforms where we can carry out this publication, maybe for internal or external. Now, for external, it could be our website. So that means for our external interested parties, we gain those information. Like maybe this phishing thing that I just mentioned. I would want external people to understand that once they get a message from them that they should send their BVN, for instance. Now, know that no bank will ask you to, those kind of disclaimer. Those are the communication that such an organization will send so that such people will not fall victim when they hear such message, as the case may be. So for internal, it could be maybe we have an intranet, or probably we have a weekly publication that we normally do within the organization that we send to everyone that, okay, be aware about this thing, be aware about this part of information security, the password policy, this policy, those kind of communication will be done. Then for 7.5 addresses documented information. So this really talks about the formatting of the whole document, whether digital documents or physical documents, as the case may be, that there should be an approach in which the organization has adopted, that everyone across board, across all departments, that this is how we choose to have our documented information. And also in that regard, we can have the classification of those documents. It means that within this class, if I want to send a document to edit, for instance, I want to send a document to edit, and that document should be a confidential document. It should be addressed to only her, even when I'm going to send such documents in the group. So in that regard, there should be a classification of such documents. And it's not just classification by just writing at the top of the document that this is classified or this is a confidential information. It is also by putting security measures So for every classification that we have, there are security measures that we need to put in place. Now, if it's such a document or information is for the general public, definitely it is external. We don't need to put much restriction on that because we want it to be for external persons. But then when it is internal, definitely internal also, we need to make sure that this is within the organization. So we share it in such a place where there are minimum restriction. Maybe the only access that we grant, maybe we have the email address of everyone within the organization that we have access to it. And we put that email there. Those are the only persons that we have access to those documented information. But if it is confidential, that means we address it to that particular person or group of persons that we want to share it with, as the case may be. So those are things that we look at. Then also we look at formatting as well. Formatting our documents. What font style are we using? What font color are we using? You know, something the adopted document control, as the case may be, because there's a document control adoption when it comes to management system that we need to follow. Probably if there's going to be a revision date, there will be a part of it also that we include that. Then you know, amendment date. If there's anything that will be done on such documents, so that there will be an history. If we create a version of the document, let's say for instance, we created a version of this document that I'm showing, and the first edition we just have under context 4.0, we just have about 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3 alone. So if we are now going to have 4.4 in the subsequent version, it is now going to be updated that, okay, in this version, we have this 4.4 is something that we just added, and just the changes that we just recorded, and we just added this to the document, as the case may be. So those are the things that generally we look at under documented information. So before I go forward, let me see. I don't know if we've asked some questions because I wasn't looking at the chat box. Let me look at the chat box to see if we have asked any questions so far. All right, I can see answers for the international standard organization. Okay. So the actual answer is International Organization for Standardization. Okay. All right, this is fine. Thank you all for responding. So far so good. I want to ask, is there any question from anyone? Is there any question from anyone? Is there any question quickly? Is there any question from anyone? All right. While we wait for questions, I think time is very essential, so we try to speed up time as well. So 8.0 talks about operation. So the operation of each ISO standard differs. So when we come to ISMS, when it comes to BCMS, when it comes to ITSMS, when it comes to different of the standards, the operation, how the operation are carried out are different completely. Therefore, for information security management system, it's under this 8.0 that we have the controls. So if you have been hearing about 27,002, it is under this 8.0 that we address 27,002. And under 27,002, we have 4 controls. So initially, there were about 14 of the controls. So it means they started from A5 up to A18. But right now, the new standard we are using, which is 2022 version, that has been compressed into 4 different subsections. And those 4 people's control, we have the physical control and we have the technological control, as the case may be. So I think let me skip the explanation for that. That's maybe the next slide will help us to explain that very well. The 9.1 said performance evaluation. So here 9.1 addresses monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. Now, what are we monitoring? What are we measuring? What are we analyzing? And what are we evaluating? Now, we can see that from 4.1, it's more like everything is a build-up. Everything is a build-up, and the build-up is all about we want to adopt and use information security management system into our organization. So everything that we have brought in now, including these eight, you know, as I mentioned, those controls that we need to put in place, about 4 of them from the organization standpoint, the technology, the people, and the physical. Now, if we have now put all these things, and also we consider the resources that we have, we consider the risk assessment that we have done in 6.1, also we consider the changes also in 6.3, we put into consideration the competence, the awareness, the communication that we have done, or the approach into which we follow our documented information. Then we need to monitor everything that we have put in place. We need to monitor it, and the essence of monitoring is we want to make sure that yes, whatever we have put in place is in accordance with what the standard says, and also we have a goal at heart. We have an objective that okay, this is what we want to gain at the end of this implementation of information security management system. So we are like, what exactly are the things that we are achieving so far? So that's the essence behind monitoring. And while monitoring, we are trying to measure it as well. We are measuring with some particular metrics that we have set aside. And we look at those metrics from the standpoint that, okay, with these metrics, are we gaining exactly what we are supposed to gain? Are we improving as an organization? Are we getting better? Then we conduct some analysis based on you know, the results we are getting from the measurements that we have done. We conduct some analysis and we see, okay, based on this analysis, what are the things that we still need to do? What are the things that we need to take off? What are the things that we need to accept? Then we do evaluation as well. And we make sure that, okay, based on what we have done so far, this means that we have achieved some things, or we are yet to achieve something. Maybe with regards to our risk assessment now, maybe we want to achieve up to like 70%, for instance, and initially we were at 10, and we have improved to like 40 to 50%. Then we can say, okay, yes, based on this analysis, then based on this evaluation, we realize that yes, we still have about 30% to go, but then it's a constant improvement as well. Then we look at 9.2. It talks about internal audits. Now, the essence of audit is to make sure that after you have implemented all of these things from the 4.0 up to the 8.0, or even the 8.3, 9.3, 10.1, and 10.2, we need to make sure that we conduct an internal audit. It means that we want to know that if we are actually in alignment with what the standard is saying, if we are actually doing what we are supposed to do. Because remember, in the end, we have a goal that we want to achieve. We want to make sure that and we are adopting it into our process. So it's more like it's going to be our DNA within the organization. So it's not just something we are just doing for certification purpose. We are doing it also. We want to make sure that this become like oxygen that we breathe in the organization. So that's when we conduct internal audits. And internal audits, we expose areas where we have not been too good and areas where we are okay, and give us a recommendation on what to do in order to be optimal in those areas. Then 9.3, management review. For every activities that has been conducted, management needs to review, because initially we said leadership and commitment. They dispersed resources under support. The top management give resources, financial resources, human resources, everything that we need. So they need to now check, okay, you've asked us for so many things and we have given you. Let's now see what you have been doing. So they feed from the report of the monitoring and measurement and analysis also. And there could be other issues also within the organization that need, that the management review meeting will help to address, as the case may be. Then 10 talks about improvements. The first one, 10.1, talks about non-conformities and corrective actions. So non-conformities and corrective action is during the course of your audit, for instance, and you realize that there are some issues that we incur from the audit, or maybe certain things that we are supposed to do with alignment to what the standard is saying, and we did not do it. And based on the audits, so there are some metrics in which they used to conduct or should I say judge audits, during audits. When you are not compliant at all, it's more like it's a major non-conformity. When you have an idea of what it is and you are not really doing it in a optimal way, they look at it as it is a minor non-conformity because you have an idea about it, or maybe a framework is on ground, but nothing has been built on it. So we see it as a minor non-conformity. But it is now an observation if what we have done is not that optimal yet. It's not, yes, we have an idea of what it is, but then we didn't do the right thing. So we can look at that as an observation. Then opportunity for improvement. It means we have done something, but then we need to have some few things just to make sure that it becomes much more better. So that's you know, the baseline for judging probably when we conduct internal audit or external audit, as the case may be, to see exactly how we can, you know, put all these things into them. So for non-conformities are areas where we are not conforming at all with regards to the standard. And so we need to have corrective actions also to make sure, because in the essence, we want to make sure that everything that the standard is saying, we are in agreement and following what the standard requires from us. So areas where we are not conforming to the standard, we apply corrective actions that can really help us and guide us to make sure that we align properly. Then 10.2 talks about continual improvement. The essence of information security management system is we want to be better than who we are. You know, initially I said the first thing we start is we do some gap analysis. And the essence of gap analysis is there is a particular place such organization exists. And after the analysis, definitely when we benchmark it to what the standard is saying, we can understand the gaps, like what we need to do to meet up with the requirements of the standard. So in continual improvement, it means that even when we have tried as much as possible to you know, scale through the standard, it means that we can still be better. Maybe there are areas in our organization where we have to be, maybe for incident purpose now, maybe we have incidents or maybe threat intelligence, the particular controls under the organizational control. Maybe most of the time we document them or probably we put them on Excel. But then for continual improvements, we might be advised, or an implementer will advise that we should try as much as possible to get a tool that will really address it, so that at least it will limit the too much involvement from you know, several persons, as the case may be, and it will really ease work for such persons, as the case may be. So those are the things that we look at under the plus 4 to 10. I think there are some questions. Let me quickly look at them. Or are they not questions? Okay. How easy is it to recover if an organization loses vital information to a competitor? Now, the first thing that we need to look at is through what means are we losing such vital information to a competitor? Now, if it is, you know, initially I said something that we need to conduct something we called risk assessment or risk, risk analysis, and do some analysis based on the risk. So we look at, under ISMS, we look at our assets. The risk we conduct is based on our assets. And information is one of those assets that we have as well when it comes to information security management. So information is an asset. We see people as an asset. We see the facility as an asset. We see the hardware as an asset. We see the software as an asset. So each of these assets. Now, for an information, how easy is it for us to recover if the organization loses vital information to a competitor? I think it depends. It depends on the foundation of such an organization. It depends, because if such organization is based on, you know, innovations and creativity, if you lose vital information to competitor, definitely they will hedge in one way or the other, and it's an opportunity for us also to, you know, look in between and diversify into some other areas, or even work better on that particular area of loan. And, you know, it has been a challenge for most organizations in recovering their loan. Now, if as an organization we develop a methodology that will work for us, and such a methodology is now leaked or probably some organized or somebody gain access into our system and leak such vital information or vital approach to how we do our business to our competitors. Definitely, we cannot really eradicate ourselves from that market space because we have the same information that is still making both of us relevant. It's just that it's a marketplace that we are the only one benefiting from before, but now so many people are benefiting from it. So we just need to make sure that we re-strategize our approach and we put some security measures in ensuring that we don't fall into that same pit hole again of losing our value.
Hello, everyone. Please, okay, thank you. You're back.
Yeah, so sorry for that. I think I don't know, something just kicked me out. Sorry for that. All right, so let me see if I can see the question again. Right, I don't know if the explanation I've given so far really addresses that question. I don't know if it really addresses it. So Richard asked the question, why is it not international standard organization? In the document, ISO was said to be international standard organization and not international organization for standardization. So I think there have been an up and down argument about this as the case may be. And you know, one of the things that I refer to most cases is because we look at when the ISO itself was created. And when it was created, I think it was the name that the bear was International Organization for Standardization. I think that was what they did then. I think that's what was the beer then. So most times, you know, most people choose whichever approach that they want to, you know, align to. And in this regard, this is not a really big deal because we can look at the terminologies, we can look at the, you know, all those other factors. But I think the most important thing is to get the knowledge that the standard carries rather than we being distracted by is it international standard of organization or is it international organization for standardization? So it could be whichever one. But then I will always advise that, you know, when we are trying to understand the concept behind an acronym also, let's look at the origin. So what is being agreed upon from the origin? And also we look at the standard as well. We look at the body, certification body that carry out the standard. What do they address it as? So what they address it as is what we should take. I don't know if that answers your question as well. So moving forward, we are going to be moving with speed now because we have dealt with the overall nature of what we are supposed to discuss. So every other thing is just going to be an abstract, you know, talking about some things. So information, the definition of information is an asset which, like other important business assets, is of value to an organization and subsequently needs to be suitably protected. You know, from the question asked initially, that's how do we recover from such an asset? Because it's a valuable asset. It is valuable to the organization. So at all times, we need to provide adequate security on every information. What makes your organization stand out is the information that you have that others do not have. So the IT space is generally all about information, or probably businesses most of the time. It's all about the information that you have as a person that the next person does not have. So that puts you out there. And if the information you have is something that is obsolete, definitely one needs to, you know, improve more and learn more and be better in whatever thing that one does, so that one can be. So whatever forms information takes or means by which it is shared or stored, it should always be appropriately protected. So it could be information in disk, information on the system, information on the phone, on tablet, on paper, information anyway, but they should be protected at all times. So it is a basic building block for all organizations I mentioned. Every organization is working with an information that is making them very important out there. And it is more than electronically stored or processed data. It is beyond you know, something that was stored maybe in our server or in one place or the other, or it's something that is processed. Information is vast. Is vast. Legal documents are information. Contractual documents are information. Statutory documents are information. Policies and procedures, they are information. So those information, whichever form in which they exist in, we should try as much as possible to provide adequate security for them. So as I said, the forms in which they exist, they could be electronically stored, transmitted via the network, shown in videos, or through verbal communication, whether it is printed or written on paper, as the case may be. Then the idea behind information security. So it's not only about securing information from unauthorized access, because you know, most of the time we think that is just what it is about. So it is not just access. It talks about preventing unauthorized access and usage, disclosure, disruption, modification, inspection, recording, or destruction of such information. Because a lot of things happen after gaining unauthorized access to an information. Such a person might not know the value of such an information and they just make use of it. Like somebody just gained access to our maybe a confidential information and they put it out there. You know, in social media these days, we see most of all those things that people just put in very confidential information, maybe about their family, about so many things. They put it out there for everyone to see, as the case may be. So it's very important that everyone apply information security. Aside from work related, even in life generally, one needs to apply information security. So it's not all information that we put out there to the rest of the world. So information can be physical, electronic. It can be anything like the details, or we can say a profile on social media, data on the phone, or biometrics. So these are all information, as the case may be. It spans so many research areas like cryptography, mobile computing, cyber forensics, online social media. And there are three components that we look at when we talk about information security. Three aspects, main aspect of it. We look at confidentiality, we look at integrity, and we look at availability. Confidentiality means that if we are all in this environment and I want to send something to only Eddie, Edit is the only one that can receive that message. And every other person will see that I sent a message to Edit, but they won't be able to access that message. Now, when we look at integrity, integrity means that if an information is supposed to be for a group of persons or for some persons, as the case may be, that from the point of transmitting that information to where the receiver is going to receive it, there is not going to be an alteration in the message. That means the message will not change. The message will not change, as the case may be. Then availability also, it means that that information must be available at every point in time that is being requested for. So those are the things that we call it the triad of information security. So at every point in time, these three things need to be measured against every information that we have before we can say, yes, there are some certain level of security that we have on ground. Then concepts. There are some concepts of information security that we know about. We have vulnerability, which talks about the weakness of an asset or controls that could be exploited by one or more threats. So it means that in a system, there is a weakness. Those are the things that hackers look out for before they can exploit such a system. Then threats, these are potential cause of an unwanted accident, which can result in harm to a system or organization. They are associated with negative aspects of risk, and as such refers to undesirable occurrences. So when we come to threats, so when we look at our vulnerabilities, areas where we are vulnerable, when we don't consider those areas very well, they become a threat, and they bring about impact or maybe negative impact for the organization. And impact, potential impact can affect the CIA in terms of financial losses, loss of assets or their values, service interruptions, lawsuits and penalties, loss of efficiency, inability to provide services. So I think maybe Africa or in Nigeria is where we don't really get this impact very well. Probably when it comes to, maybe there are times that we experience network disruption. Like for instance, initially I just went off from the call. I don't know. So I don't know the reason why that happened. So if we are going to really consider this, we are supposed to find a lawsuit on whether it is Zoom or it is the network exactly. So those are the things we look at precisely under impact. Then for information security risk, it can be expressed as effect of uncertainty on information security objectives. So when we are considering certain level of uncertainty around certain objectives also that we have set aside. So those are the things we consider under risk. Then security controls. These controls for information security includes any process, policy, procedure, guideline, practice, or organizational structure that can be administrative, technical, managerial, or legal in nature, and that can modify information security risk. So controls are actually there to make sure that, as I said, there could be policy, there could be procedure, there could be guidelines, as the case may be. But then they look at, they modify information security risk, whether through the administrative approach, through the managerial approach, or legal approach, or technical approach in essence. So they look into all those aspects, because in the essence, we don't want to have financial loss. We don't want to lose our assets or the value of our assets. We don't want to be in a lawsuit or trying to pay fine, or loss of efficiency, as the case may be. We don't want to be in problem at any point in time. So that's why we make sure that we put controls in place to address every challenge or risk that may arise from such assets. So most people ask that question, that what is the difference between information security and cyber security? In layman time, I do tell people that information security is a broader umbrella. It's a bigger umbrella that might really encompasses cyber security, cloud security, those other, cloud or cyber, they have it's more like their parents' name is information security, but then they can decide to expand on themselves, or expand and focus on a bigger umbrella. So information security, it creates and implements policies and systems to protect information, as the case may be. Then, cybersecurity covers everything that has to do with electronic systems and communication. The field of cybersecurity are subcategorized as categories that entail further specification, which include either cloud, network, critical network, infrastructure security, as the case may be. So in most cases, cybersecurity is almost, is an aspect or a strata of information security at large. Let me see, is there a question? I think there was a question. Oh, sorry, Mr. Okay, we asked the question at the end of the class. So please, Mr. Adeleke, please remind me at the end of the class, you ask your question. So what is information security management system? So we want to understand what the management system really is. And, as we say, ISMS stands for Information Security Management System, and it includes policies, processes, procedures, to manage information security risk in a structured and systematic way. Now, as I mentioned before, the bedrock of the existence of information security management system is to address risk. It's a risk-based approach. So it's not just about bringing up policies or bringing up, in short, the essence of policy is to make sure that we all abide by a particular approach so that we don't get into trouble one way or the other. So it's to avoid risk in one way or the other. So the idea behind information security management system is to make sure that we put in a structured or a systematic approach to our risk assessment methodology in the organization. So also by designing, implementing, managing, and maintaining ISMS, we can protect the confidential, personal, or sensitive data from being compromised. So if we make sure that we are implementing ISMS within the organization, not just implementing, we are managing it. And maintenance means that there's continual improvement in our ISMS. So that means in that regard, we have level of protection over confidential information, personal information, or sensitive data, as the case may be. The strength of ISMS is based on the robustness of the information security risk assessment. So if we are going to say that we have done a fantastic risk assessment, or probably we have a very valid or important strong ISMS within the organization. So that means that people would have measured the robustness of what exactly we have done under our risk assessment. So it is the level of things that we have achieved under our risk assessment that we ascertain that yes, our ISMS within the organization is valid and strong, as the case may be. So as I said before, there are previous versions of 27001. The latest one is version 2022. Then the purpose of this is to provide practical guidance in developing the information or the implementation plan for ISMS within organization in accordance with the standard. So the requirements set out in these documents are generic and are intended to be applicable to all organizations regardless of the type. Yes, they are generic, but then it needs to be fine-tuned to what the clients. Now, if we say context of the organization is generic, every organization is not generic. The approach to their management is not generic. So yes, the requirements, the documents is generic, but then it needs to be tailored to what exactly is being practiced within the organization. Then excluding any of the requirements specified in clause 4 to 10 is not acceptable when an organization claims conformity to these documents. So if we say that we are in conformity to what the standard is saying, so that means that every approach from clause 4 to 10, everything is required, is mandatory. It's mandatory. Now, as I mentioned before, there's something we call statements of applicability. On that statement of applicability, we will know exactly when it comes to the controls, because the organization differs recently. From COVID, we have been able to see clearly that there are some organizations that they don't need to go to their physical space to work. Some people work completely from home and their businesses is still moving fine. So that means there are some, when it comes to the physical controls, there are some controls that might not be fully applicable to people that work remotely compared to people that come to the office every day. So those are the things that we just look at completely during the course of implementation. Then principles of information security management system. We explained this the other time. Confidentiality, that means the information must be for the person you are sending it to. Integrity, it means that from the standpoint of when you are sending it to the receiver, there is no change in that information. The availability, it means such an information is available at all times. So this explains the term used to prevent disclosure of information to unauthorized individuals. The integrity talks about that data cannot be modified without authorization. And availability talks about that the computing system used to store and process the information, the security control used to protect it, and the communication channel used to access it must be functioning correctly. So that means there is no, because when we are saying, in most times, when there's something we call tiering in data center, So we might call it tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and more recently, tier 5. And those tiering are actually categorized according to the availability of the resources that they have. Some might be 93.5, some might be 99.8, 99.6, 99. So it means that at every point in time, they are trying to make us understand that their resources are always available, whether we are having it as a platform as a service, we're having it as infrastructure as a service, or we have it as whichever way that we want to get it, that it is going to be available at all time. The importance of information security defines best practice for information security management based on experience feedback from thousands of users. It demands for a risk assessment to be conducted and a process for treating risk in order to mitigate them. I explained this the other time. It is based on risk assessment and not just assessing the risk. So that means we need to also have a process of treating those risks in order to try to, because there's an appetite that the organization will have with regards to risk. Maybe it is low. I want to make sure that when it comes to all our assets, based on the analysis or the calculations that we are going to do on our risk assessment, that it is supposed to be low. So that means for every asset, the risk score, the risk appetite has to be low. So all those things need to be put into consideration. Then the risk assessment and the treatment process in this standard, it aligns to ISO 31000, which is the risk management principles and guidelines. So it's more like the approach we are taking under this aligns to, because there's a particular controls, a particular standard also that talks about risk management. So the approach we are taking for addressing risk in 27001 is coined from that approach. So we're in alignment with that. So it has similar structure to other standards like ISO 9001, which is QMS, ISO 14001, ISO 45001. So it can be easily adopted, implemented, and also integrated. So an internationally recognized structured methodology, facilitation of trading in trusted environment. So what this is trying to make us understand is this is something that is done international wise. So it's not just a local approach of doing things. And it facilitates trading in a trusted environment, because if organizations, maybe top organizations, want to inquire from us as implementers that, okay, yes, you come and implement for us, so they know that your implementation is in requirement to a standardized body. So it's not just something that one just gain the knowledge and just trying to do things out of the blue. So it facilitates a trusted environment that, okay, yes, based on the controls or the clauses that have been developed from the standard, that this are the values that we're going to be getting while implementation is going on. So the benefits of information security system, we have systematic structured approach. So when we are trying to implement information security, there's a systematic and structured approach that we need to. So the first thing that we need to do is gap assessment. We need to conduct our gap assessment to make sure that, yes, before we try to look at the organization as if they are in compliance or not, we want to make sure that we conduct that gap assessment based on what the standard requires, and we see what is existing, and we make sure that we have a report that really addresses that, so that such organization will know exactly what to do in the course of time, and also improve understanding of business aspects. So here it makes organization to have a proper understanding, because as much as possible, where we under the context and scope documents, or content and scope in 4.1, we gain an understanding of the product and services such an organization is running. So here it's improved the understanding of business aspects, so that for implementers as well, it helped them to have a broader understanding of the aspect or the segments of such company. Maybe it's an oil and gas environment. It gives them proper understanding of that environment. And also it helps also the client also to have an understanding that, okay, this is how we can bring in information security into this space that we are existing. Then next one, protect information from a range of threats by putting in controls. Definitely, those controls will help to avoid unnecessary threats, as the case may be, by treating areas of vulnerability that we have seen. Like for instance, in ethical hacking, there's something we call vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. So one of the reason why we do that effectively is to make sure that the weaknesses, the vulnerabilities in systems, whether it is in their applications, in their websites, in their database, as the case may be, we conduct this assessment so that it can expose a series of vulnerabilities that exist in that space, and we put in some remediation approach or approach that can really help us to close those gaps, so that, because it is easier or it is better for us to see that fault or vulnerability ourselves in the organization than to allow an hacker to find out that weakness. Because for every weakness can be exploited. So we should just try as much as possible to make sure we don't open ourselves up too much. Then also opportunity to identify and find weakness. As I said, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. Then better incident management. It means that at every point in time, even with the level of security that we have, there are tendencies that because one thing about information security, or one thing about IT generally, is IT is moving. It's not where it used to be. So if you think you've done some level of security within your infrastructure and you think nobody can gain access to it, you need to start revisiting it again, because there's tendency someone else is improving on their own skills, on trying to look out for every weakness that exists in that system and see exactly how they can come in and get access to your own system. So incident management could happen. And for top organizations that have tools that help them to manage incidents, as the case may be, there's SIM, Alien Vault as a SIM tool. At every point in time, you see such a tool generating reports of several attempts on trying to get event management, as the case may be, on their assets. And information security really help to have a broader understanding about all these concepts and make organization relax that yes, you can be in your house and you have tools that will be helping you to do something that somebody is supposed to sit down and be monitoring 24/7. There ensures business continuity, yes, because we want to make sure that we are running completely, as we are running our business entirely. During COVID, so many business closed down as a result of not envisaging the proper use of business continuity. And most organizations are making sure that they are implementing information security or business continuity approach into their business, so that they don't fall into that pit again. Minimizes financial loss, reduces reputational risk, manages return on investments, increase business opportunities. Because when people knows that when clients, for instance, if we work in the banking sector, when our clients know that we are certified in information security, that means that they have that assurance that every information of theirs that is in our purview, that we are going to respectfully keep that information as confidential information. So they have, they trust us completely in that regard. So it provides confidence to trading partners, enhances the knowledge and importance of security-related issues at company level. So here is more like the ISO 27000 family. So either anything you see about 2700 anything, now they are from the 27,000 family. They are from the 27,000 family. So there we look at that 27,000 as more like an overview of vocabulary, as the case may be. So we look at it from that regard. Now the requirements from all those standards, the requirements themselves are 3 of them. We have ISO 27006, which talks about organizations providing audits and certification of ISMS. Then 27001, which specifically is Information Security Management System. Then 27701, which talks about Privacy Information Management System. And each, and we have been talking about Information Security Management System. So each and every one of them really align also to what 27001 really represents. They are aligned to the existence of it. So the various guidelines that we have, because these guidelines, they guide us into everything that cuts across information security management system. When it comes to 27,002, the information security controls. When it comes to 27,003, it talks about the guidance. When it comes to 27704, the monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation, which we can get also from the clause 9. It's actually our clause 9.1. So it's more like it's a standard on itself. It's a standard on itself. Then 27,005, which is risk assessment. And also this risk assessment as well, information security risk assessment. You know, also we adopt our risk assessment is gotten from ISO 27,000, ISO 31,000. That's risk management, the standard that addresses risk management itself. So we adopt this one as well. Then cybersecurity also, because a lot of people will be asking that, okay, why is cybersecurity an aspect of information security management system? Now we can see that it is here as 27,032. Therefore, industrial guidelines, we have 27017, which talks about information security controls for cloud services. So in actual regard, this is what we call cloud security. 27017 is what we call cloud security. Then also we have 27018, protection of personal identifiable information in public cloud acting as personal identifiable processors. And there are many others also that are attached to this family. So the list is endless, as the case may be. So here we briefly talk about the history. You know, it starts from 27,001, the 2005 version, spin up to 2013 version, and more recently, we have the 2022 version. And the last version and this version, the changes is the number of clauses in the main part of the standard still remains the same as 11 of them. But when it comes to the number of controls, now remember I said 27,002 are the controls. So initially, there's a section of those controls, that's Annex A. Initially, it was 14 of them. And those 14, they were grouped into 14, but the totality of them is 114. But recently, they've been grouped into 4, and the totality of them is 93. Now, the truth of the matter is none of the 114 was taken out, but then some of them were merged together. And I think 11 new controls was now added to the other ones as well. So it's more like we have the merge of various controls together from 114 to 93, and despite that, another 11 is still added to it. So it's more like we have 114 and extra 11 to fit into that 93 box. So here are the comparison between 27,001 and 27,002. So 27,001 has been prepared to provide requirements for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving an information security management system. The adoption of our information security management system is a strategic decision for organization. The establishment and implementation of the organization's ISMS is influenced by the organization's needs and objectives, security requirements, the organization processes used, and the size and structure of such organization. So all of these influencing factors are expected to change over time, used as a basis for certification. So things like this also, there's tendency for them to change over time. And so that's information about 27,001. So for 27,002, it provides a reference set of generic information security control. So as I mentioned before, for 27,001 is more like the requirement itself. 27,001 is the general requirement, and 27,002 is embedded in that requirement. So that the clause 8 is 27,002. So, and as I said, 27,002 is divided into 4 sections: organizational control, people's control, physical controls, and technical controls, as the case may be. So those are the things that we look at, or those are the relationship between both of them. So in a larger extent, we can't say we want to get certification for 27,002 separately. So it's more like there's a parent name which is 27,001. So if you are implementing 27,001, definitely you get the values for 27,002. But you can't say you want to implement 27,002 in abstract without 27,001. It's practically impossible. So these are some quiz questions I want to ask us. And I will appreciate at least to hear, maybe to hear, or if you are going to type in some things as well. Which standard below provides requirements for ISMS? Anyone want to help us out? Anyone want to help us out? Is there anyone that wants to help us out?
Please feel free to chat your response in the chat room for those who do not want to speak.
Okay, A. All right, interesting. 27,001. All right, that's fine. That's fine. So the second question, which of the statement below is correct? Organizations can obtain certification against 27,001. Organizations can obtain certification against 27,005. Or organizations cannot obtain certification against 27,001. Which one will be our answer? Which one is our answer? Is it A? Is it B? Is it C? Okay, Apollo Pressure said C. Okay. A can obtain certificates for 27,001 by Severia. Okay. Okay. Any other response? Any other response? Okay. Denike said C. Richard said A. Shenfumi said A. Select said C. Ayodele said A. Okay, so the answer is A. It said, which of the statement below is correct? We can never obtain a certification against 27,005. It cannot, it's a guideline. 27,005 is a guideline. So we can't obtain a certification for a guideline. For 27,001, so we can, 27,001 is the one we can actually obtain certification for. So that's why A is the answer. Then for last one, which international standard provides a reference set of information security controls? Is it A, 27,002, B, 27701, C, 27005? A, okay. A is the answer. A is the answer. The A is have it. So the last question, when an employee accidentally or with malicious intent deletes important data files, what is violated? Is it confidentiality that is violated? Is it integrity that is violated? Or is it availability that is violated? Oh, Siberia said B, C, okay. Wellman said B, No said A, Akim said C, Onyi said C, Temipayo said C. Okay, okay. All right, so when we look at this question, first of all, we need to define what confidentiality talks about. It means that the information, when we are sending confidential information, that means it is respected that it is for someone else. Now, when an employee now accidentally or with malicious intent deletes important data file, what is violated? Because if such an information is being deleted, it is not going to be available again. The availability of that information has been compromised. It has been violated. So that availability has been violated. So who said confidentiality? Okay, Richard said confidentiality. Do you want to give an explanation of why it is confidentiality? Why? No, because the question does not really address that the employee does not have access to that data. It does not have, the employee has access to that data. So it's more like the confidentiality has been answered within that gap. Yes, yes, because of the malicious intent. So whether it is malicious intent, whether it is accidentally, because from the question said an employee accidentally or wait, so it's more like we don't know whether it is by accident or by malicious intent. So it's more like we are crossed between those two lines. But then the basic fact is, since that information has been deleted, it is not going to be available. So the availability of that information is what is violated, as the case may be. So are they being, the employee changes the information? Definitely that will be integrity. Or are they being the employee is not supposed to have access to that information? That is, it violates confidentiality. No, see, it will be A when the employee is not supposed to have access to that information. But that was not stated. But it was more like access has been granted already, but accidentally or with malicious intent, it now happens. So the problem we're having now is availability. So quickly, I think we are done with the first one. So quickly, we need to quickly do the second. We still have another slide, probably in 30 minutes. I try as much as possible for us to speed up so that we can finish this session, the part 2 of this session. So sometimes it might be a repetition of what we have done before. So there might be some skipping from what we have done before. So topics that we want to cover here, we want to cover the requirements, the documentation requirements, the establishing and implementing ISMS itself. The documentation requirements. So with regards to the standard now, as I mentioned before, as I explained before, we have the mandatory processes. We have clause 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And 4 is context of the organization, 5 is leadership, 6 is planning, 7 is support, 8 is operation, which addresses 27,002. Then 9 talks about performance evaluation, then 10 improvements, performance improvements. Then the Annex A, which is the controls we are addressing under clause 8 operation. We have 4 domains with 93 different controls. So as I have explained this before, so I don't want us to go back to this. We've explained this before. So let's quickly look at the number of domains and the controls. So for organizational control now, we have 37 of those domains. We have for people's control, we have 8 of those domains. For physical controls, we have 14. Technical controls, we have 34. So altogether, they make 93. Establishing and implementing ISMS. Now, there's an approach, there's 27,001 and other related frameworks also that we need to quickly have an understanding about. There's something we call PDCA. PDCA. I don't know if anyone in the comment section can just type in what they think PDCA before I go to the next slide, because the next slide really explains it. You can just type what we understand by PDCA as the case may be. Let me quickly look at that. Interesting. Dr. Irene, very interesting. Thank you so much for that. Hui, thank you for that. Eniola, thank you for that. Thank you all for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, exactly. So plan, do, check, act. That's what we do. That's what we call PDC. So it's more like a circle of activities that we need to do with respect to information security management system. And what this definition is, it said it's also known as an internal audit check that could be conducted before understanding the requirement processes of 27,001. It's a process model adopted by ISO 27,001. And we say 27,002 provides guidelines for selecting and implementing information security controls and for implementing information security standard and best practices as well. The 27,005 provides guidelines for the establishment of a systematic approach to our information security risk assessment or risk management, which is necessary to identify organizational needs regarding information security requirements. So what 27,005 addresses It's more like a guideline, our systematic approach in addressing our risk management. What 27,002 is a guideline for selecting information security controls information security controls that we address, several segments of our organization, and making sure that those controls or those information security are in alignment with best practices and standards, as the case may be. Then also we have NIST cybersecurity. Now, can anybody tell me the full meaning of NIST? NIST. Let me see from the comment section. NIST. Anybody tell me the meaning of NIST? Interesting. Thank you for that. National Institute of Standards and Technology. Nice. That's great. That's great. National Institute of Standard and Technology. So this is the practice of protecting systems, networks, and programs from, from digital accounts or digital attacks, sorry. These cyber attacks are usually aimed at assessing, changing, or destroying sensitive information, extorting money from users via ransomware, or interrupting normal business processes. So this NIST cybersecurity, or it's more like the NIST framework, what it really addresses is to make sure that the systems that we have within the organization, the network that we have, when we talk about our network, it's a collaboration of different equipment itself to form what we call a network. So that means in the various modules of those equipment itself, there are some levels of protection that we need to put in place, whether it is programs, whether it is softwares, whether it is, whatever thing that we are using technological wise that is really working for the organization, we should just make sure that we have some level of protection against digital attacks, as the case may be. So, because the cyber attacks are usually aimed at, gaining access to those things, not just gaining access, trying to change information. Like for instance, there was a time where I heard maybe someone was, an organization was hacked. Maybe they were selling the product, and on their website, probably they left that website open for some other third party to gain access, and maliciously the person gained access to maybe the APIs that they use for their transaction, and one way or the other, no security measures were done around those things, and they gained access to it, and they changed their account number, for instance. And while a lot of people are coming to them that they have paid for a product, whereas the money is going into another account, as the case may be. So we need, as an organization, as a person, we need to make sure that we focus more on security, especially when we're on the cyberspace, because we hear so many times that a lot of people say maybe their social media account has been hacked and things like that, and you see some people are using that same account to be asking maybe their family members or their friends that this person is in need for money, and they should send money to them, and things like that. So we should just be very careful. And one of the security measures also that's that has been put out there, that we should make sure that we use 2FAs, multi-factor authentication, that we should make sure that we look at all those things critically well whenever we are trying to approach whatever thing that we are doing, as the case may be. So that addresses that. Please, can you give me a minute? Sorry, just a minute. Yeah, so sorry about that. So sorry about that. I don't know if we can quickly continue. Are we here with me? Are we here with me?
Yes, we're here.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So, as I mentioned the other time, let me see if there's a response to. Okay. I think a lot of people have answered. Maybe there was a question. Let me check if there was a question for me. Okay. Peter said, I think one of the best things or way is to add security questions and constantly change the password. Yes, yes, that is very important. That is very important for us to consider, because when it comes to password, there's a particular policy we call in information security password policy. So that policy, it's number one, aside from the fact that it's supposed to be uniform in an organization, also there should be a time factor. Maybe after 3 months, we are expected to change the password, or after 3 months, we are expected to, do some modification as the case may be. So it is very important. Even personally, password, one needs to make sure that you don't use the same password. Don't use your name as a password. Something that can easily be guessed, you should not use it as a password. Now, if my name is, if Edit, for instance, and on maybe on a credit card, and the password she used is Edit, and she changes the case sensitivity of her name to use as a password, one can easily guess. And this guessing of a thing, especially for those that study mathematics, this factorial of a thing, permutation and combination, you can just get multiple ways of, getting the name. If it is Edit now, we have five characters, just like 5 factorial, and you say 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, and you get the number of ways, and you keep trying it. At least one will work. So we should just try and let our password be something abstract away from our names, as the case may be. So as I said, plan PDCA, plan, do, check, act. So under plan, that's where we identify the business objectives. We want to know exactly, okay, what exactly are the goals of this organization? What exactly do they want to achieve? What exactly are the set objectives, like maybe for the year, that they are trying to look at? And it's in this same extent that we look at, we need to obtain management support. We need to make sure that the management are in adherence to whatever activities that we are trying to do, that the management are supporting us with regards to resources, with regards to people that can really handle such responsibilities, or even tools that we might need to make such responsibility easy for us. Then also we need to select the proper scope of implementation. We need to understand that, okay, we want to implement this thing. So how do we go about that implementation? What exactly are the things that we need to look at? What are the things that we need to cover entirely? Then also we define a method of risk assessment. We should find an approach, because according to 27001, there is a systematic approach that we have. So there might be some other approach that a lot of people take into doing their risk assessment. But for the course of 27001, we should make sure that we stick to that 31,000 approach, which also 27,005 aligned with. Then 5, we prepare an inventory of information assets. Now, a lot of organizations get this thing wrong. When we talk about inventory, it means that both your IT and non-IT assets, we need to conduct risk on them. Now, there are some non-IT, like your table, all those ones, they might not really be effective in terms of how does this one really affect uh, information security as a larger extent. But one way or the other, if we have a table, and under that table, there are some wrong connections of wires, and along the line, there is someone left the office without switching off their uh, their lights or anything, and there's a cable breach, and there's fire, and that table got fire. the system got fire, and on that system we have critical information or vital information that we did not even have we did not save it anywhere else. Or basically maybe we have a hard copy of confidential information or a contractual document with organization, some other organization, and those documents are burnt. Definitely, it's going to cost us one way or the other. So that's where under our risk assessment, we conduct everything, but then we put much more emphasis on IT-related assets, as the case will be. Then under the do, we try to manage the risk and create a treatment plan. Yes, we know we want to conduct our risk, but then we want to make sure that while conducting this risk, we have a treatment plan, because it's not just conducting risk for the fun of it. We want to make sure that we limit that risk. We set a parameter for ourselves, whether we can reduce that risk or whether we can accept it based on the methodology that we have adopted. And we set up a plan to make sure to treat all those risks as the case will be. Then also we look at policies. We set up policies and procedures to control those risks. It means that if we realize that a lot of people, there's a policy in ISMS that we call clear desk, clear screen policy. And one of the adverse effects of not adhering to that policy is within an organization, everyone might have a different responsibility and different tasks that they carry out. But then someone else, in the organization, you don't know exactly disgruntled staff, you don't know exactly the state of mind of most people. So you only know about yourself, and because you are handling extremely sensitive information, you should make sure that at all times your screen is locked, or probably you don't have multiple files or folders stored on your desktop. In most cases, we make sure that most of our sensitive files, they are kept in a place. Maybe we have a shared drive that only that person we have access to, and we make sure that they don't share those access with external persons. So it means that even when you want to go and ease yourself, or you want to go to the restroom, you want to go and eat lunch, you make sure that your system is locked at all times. Because I heard of a story where someone left the after adopt or implementing the policy in the organization and full adopting it. Someone left the office, left the space, and just went to the restroom, probably for like 2 minutes thereabouts. And the policy was about a 3-minute policy that the screen automatically will lock itself. Now, within that 2 minutes window, the CEO walked to the office and typed the person's resignation and sent it to himself. And the person got a reply from the CEO saying, okay, see me in my office. And the person got to the CEO's office wondering, what's the CEO looking for me for? And the CEO said, you sent me your resignation letter. What's the problem? And the guy was like, I do no such thing. But when the CEO showed him and he saw it also on the system, he realized that, okay, he has not been in full adherence to this policy. So as much as we might set the policy to be like every 3 minutes our system is going to turn off themselves, we also need to make sure that once we are leaving our system, that such a system is being locked so that no other person will have access to it. Then next one is allocate resources and train staff. So for proper understanding and full adoption of integrated information security management system, we need to do training and retraining and series of training over and over again so that everyone within the organization can really have a proper understanding and really internalize all the old processes that are involved within the concept of ISMS. The check talks about monitor the implementation. So it means that if we have put in so many controls, we have looked at the clauses, we have addresses what the clauses is saying, everything that the clauses is asking us to do, we have done those things. And with regards to our risk, we have made sure that we conduct our risk in such a proper way. We need to now monitor everything that we have done, because it's not just enough for us to just do, obey the requirements and just fold our hands. So we need to make sure that over time we are monitoring. So monitoring is a continuous exercise. It's something we do over time just to make sure that we are continually improving. So at every point in time that we monitor, we see areas where we still need to focus more on, or probably technology that probably we need to adopt that will ease the pressure of the workload of irrespective persons that are handling several responsibilities. as the case may be. Then the 10 said we should prepare for certification audits. So by the time we are monitoring the implementation and we feel that, yes, we are monitoring, we are evaluating, we are putting measurement metrics in place to make sure that, yes, we are in alignment, then we can go for our certification. We can go for our certification. Then when it comes to ACT is where we look at conduct periodic reassessment audits. Now, there's a difference between when we do the certification audit and reassessment. So reassessment is, there's something we call CMMI, capacity, I think it's talked about performance maturity level. We need to measure the maturity level, capacity maturity level, I think, yeah. So we need to measure the maturity level of the certification that we have done, because a lot of people go for certification just to get certified and that's all. But the essence of doing periodic reassessment is to make sure that we are continually improving. That as much as we are focusing on corrective actions also, that we are building much more strength also towards the preventive actions, because it's much more easy and safe as an organization for us to prevent certain actions than to start correcting. Because, for instance, it's easy for us to have the firewall system configured, whether for the DMZ zone, whether for the trusted zone or for the untrusted zone, and we make sure that we monitor traffic going through such firewall, and we monitor everything. We have WAF in place, web application firewalls. We have intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention system. We have all those things working together just to make sure we want to prevent unnecessary access to our network or to our infrastructure, than correcting them when they have already happened. Now, if we have a security breach, someone asked the question the other time, that what do we do if we have lost vital information? Now, in that regard, correction is what we are going to be looking for. And because of the criticality of that information, we will pay every ransom just to make sure that we gain access to our information back. But a scenario where we have some measures in place to prevent such things from happening, it saves us a lot of stress and a lot of headache, as the case may be. So ISMS, planning for implementation. So ISMS specify the best practice for business continuity planning. When we talk about business continuity planning, it's more like you identify your critical processes. When we say critical processes, that means things that you know that once these things go down, once these services go down, the organization has shut down. So you identify those critical services and you make sure that you put priority on the availability of those services over time. That means everything that service needs to run, you make sure you provide it as an organization. And that's why we do BCP, Business Continuity Plan. And we make sure that just in case we are faced with a disruption, in the midst of that disruption, our business could still be flowing. And disruption could be maybe an earthquake, maybe another pandemic, maybe in Nigeria, there's a time we call a particular pandemic EndSARS. So maybe something like that, a riot happened. So we need to make sure that we have an adequate plan that will keep the business running, even in the midst of such disruption. Then also system access control. Now, a lot of people talked about, remote working. You want to work from home, you want to do that. Now, if an organization do not have the robustness or the adequate preparation for everything that will make working from home convenient, it will be practically impossible. And this is the systems that we are going to be having, that we are going to be making use of. We need to make sure that we have a highly structured, monitored access control into all those platforms. So into all those applications that we are going to be making use of. That means that whichever person is handling different responsibilities, that means their activities are being monitored. And it means that what is being given to them is based on role, it's a role-based engagement. So we are giving a task according to your role. You are not just having a full access to the platform. Because if you have a full access to the platform, a lot of people can maneuver and gain information that they are not supposed to have access to. So there should be a rigid access control policy on ground to make sure that we follow for ISMS to be properly implemented. Then system acquisition, development, and maintenance. Now, when it comes to, maybe we have development team, DevOps guys in our organization, we want to make sure that they are that we have a secure environment for them that ensure them, number one, to understand best practice of whatever they are doing. Also, we need to ensure that there are different environments for their job delivery or their activities. Maybe they have a development area, they have a testing area, and they have production area, as the case may be. Then also when it comes to our systems, or probably systems that we are making use of with regards our network, with regards our servers, with regards our routers, our switches, our systems itself, we want to make sure that, okay, we want to get them from a qualified vendor. We want to make sure that the vendor, we are getting all these things from, they are reliable vendors. And we also want to know the end of life of all those equipment, as the case may be. We want to make sure that we have a proper understanding of those information and the proper maintenance of such system. The physical and environmental security, these are one of the controls that the ISMS really handles. So physical controls, there are about 14 of them that addresses every aspect of secure working areas, having an healthy environment to carry out job function, as the case may be. Therefore, compliance, we want to make sure that maybe we have regulatory bodies that we need to be compliant with. We need to make sure that during this course of implementation, that we have some things, some form of documentation that talks about our compliance, maybe with CAC, for instance, registration of our business. Are we compliant with that? When it comes to, if we're a bank, if we come to CBN, the requirement that CBN is requesting from us, are we compliant? When it comes to EFCC, when it comes to NFIU, are we compliant with all of those things? So that's where compliance comes in. Then incident management, we need to make sure that when it comes to information security incident management, it's advisable most times to have a tool that really addresses that. Because in most cases, documenting them manually might be a bit tedious, except there's somebody who is assigned only for that responsibility to be documenting such incidents. But then there are tools that really help to automatically document this information security incident on different platforms, whether on software platforms or network or database, as the case may be. So personnel security, we need to have a physical security, especially when it is the kind of organization where we work Monday to Friday, or even on the weekends as well. We need to have a physical person as a security in that organization to make sure that, yes, those properties are, everything are secure. And also, we have, people to, maybe like CCTV also, to monitor the whole environment to make sure that, yeah, there are adequate security in the organization. So security organization, yeah. So that's where CCTV comes in, to make sure that at every blind spot, we can capture every blind spot and see exactly what is going on in every part of the organization. Then communication and operation management, we need to make sure that there's an approach that is being developed, or that is being addressed under communication, that communication is not neglected. We communicate maybe through to our interested parties, whether internal interested parties or external interested parties. We have a medium of doing that communication. Then asset classification and control. So we need to have a categorization of our assets. What exactly are those assets? Which assets belong to information? Which assets are hardware? Which assets are software? Which assets are for facility, as the case may be? So we identify those assets category and we put in controls over those assets. Then security policies also. And these policies are the ones that the controls talk about. We need to put those, those policies in place that we address every part of security measures that we need to put in place within the organization. So planning, in all compliance and certification initiative, consideration of the organization size, the nature of its business, maturity of the process in implementing ISMS, and commitment of senior management are very essential. Yeah, they are very essential The most important departments and activities that will be vital to the success of the project is the internal audits, the IT departments. Now, the essence of writing this or saying this is it's not because every other department are not important, but then the internal audits, during the initial planning phase, the input from internal audits will be useful in developing an implementation strategy and early involvement of internal auditors so that you don't need to bring in someone from the outside to do an internal audit, as the case may be. So they will be useful during the course of the audit. They will very helpful to the organization. They will point out certain challenges that the organization faces. The IT department, they will dedicate resources and time to activities associated with the initiative of the ISMS. An inventory of existing IT compliance initiative, procedures and policies, and the maturity of existing IT processes and controls will be very useful to gain an understanding also of how the existing process align with the standard. Then, for example, facility management is largely responsible for physical security and access control. The implementation phase. Certain things that we need to try to do first is we need to define an ISMS policy. We need to have a policy. Then also we need to make sure that the scope of the ISMS is properly defined and properly, scope, that the ISMS is properly scoped. So we want to know the boundary to which we go with regards to this implementation. We want to know exactly what we can do and what we cannot do, as the case may be. And also we want to perform a security risk assessment. As I mentioned, everything we do in ISMS is centered around risk assessment. So we want to conduct a security risk assessment, and we want to manage the risks that we've identified in those areas. So after conducting the assessment, the risks that we've identified, we want to make sure that we look into those risks and we manage those risks. And also we put aside controls that will be implemented and applied so that we can reduce that risk. Another thing we look at is we prepare an SOA. An SOA is statement of applicability. And what statement of applicability really addresses is we look at the standard as a whole. We look at the standard as a whole, and we look at what we have. It's respective to what the standard is requesting from us. Now, if there's a particular control that the standard requests that we should have, and we do not have it, now the SOA, in that SOA document is going to be, there are going to be justification for either aligning to any control or not aligning to it, by making use of any control or not making use of it. So for any controls that we are making use of, there is a justification for making use of it. The ones we are not making use of, there's also a justification. And this suggested PDCA steps are further simplified and mapped to the implementation phase developed for easy understanding and implementation. The following steps consider the IT maturity within the organization and the review and registration process. So this is the proper, when we look at the implementation phases itself. We look at phase one, we talked about we need to identify the business objective. And from the onset, from plus 4.1, those are the things that we request from the organization. Before we can come up with the ISMS objective, we need to come up also with business objectives. So these are the things we get from our respective clients, just to make sure that we know exactly what we are doing. The second one, we look at, we obtain management support, because the management support makes the project efficient, make the project smooth sailing. Then also we select a proper scope of implementation, and also we look at a defined method of risk assessment. We prepare an inventory of information. That means for every asset that we have a list of every asset, so that we know, okay, if we are conducting risk, we know that yes, we are conducting risk based on this asset, every asset that they have within the organization. The 6 talk about managing risk and create a risk treatment plan. So after conducting the risk assessment, we make sure that we have a plan to remediate such a risk as the case may be. Then phase 7 talks about set up policies, procedures to control risk. So part of the remediation that we are going to do are the policies and procedures that we are setting aside. And those policies will really address such risk as the case may be. Then phase 8 talked about allocate resources and train the staff. So there's proper training that needs to be done, because for every of those processes, there are people that are going to be handling those processes. So they need to be trained at all time. They need to be trained at the appropriate time so that they will know exactly what to do. Then we need to monitor the implementation of the ISMS. By monitoring, it means that we want to make sure that we are in compliance with what the standard is saying, with all the requirements. Then the next phase will be prepared for certification audits. In the next phase, we have it in mind that we're going to be conducting a periodic reassessment audit. So how do we map 27,001 suggested steps to implementation phase? So we look at we're trying to look at the first time that the standard was created, which is 2005 version. So we look at the implementation phase, which is phase 1 and 2, which talks about identify business objectives and then obtain management support. So we align that with define an ISMS policy. So in that policy, definitely it will be stated there the objective of the business exactly, and also support that the management are trying to offer with regards to the implementation process. They will match scope of the ISMS with the scope of implementation, phase 3, and that's the align. Then phase 4, define a method of risk assessment. And the other one under the standard is perform a security risk assessment. Then next one, manage the identified risk. Phase 5, which is prepare an inventory of information assets to protect and rank assets according to risk classification based on risk assessment. Then for select controls to be implemented and applied, we prepare an SOA, which aligns to phase 6, 7, and 8, which is manage the risk and create a treatment plan, set up policies and procedures to control risk, then allocate resources and train the staff. So for review and registration steps to implementation phase, now we look at management review and internal audits, which align with phase 9, which is monitor the implementation of the ISMS. Then registration and certification talks about preparation for certification audits. Then ISMS improvement really addresses periodic assessment audits. Now, cost of implementation. Before implementing ISMS, there's need to consider the cost and project length, which are further influenced by a detailed understanding of implementation phase. So any cost is painful in tough economic times like this. So in today's cloud computing environment, organizations that really want to reduce costs without compromising information security, they are looking at the certification of ISMS as a promising means to provide knowledge about their IT security. So implementation costs are driven by perception of risk and how much risk an organization is prepared to accept. So remember, implementation cost is driven by the perception of risk. So it is the risk that we have, the magnitude of the risk that we have within the organization, and how much risk we are prepared to accept. So it is driven, the implementation cost is really driven by that. The 4 costs need to be considered when implementing this. We need to look at our internal resources in terms of the system covers a wide range of business functions, which include management, human resource, the IT, the facility, and security. And this resource will be adequately needed for the implementation process. The external resource also will need experienced consultants, that will save us the huge amount of time and cost. They will also prove useful during internal audits by providing, help in areas where our knowledge base is not that strong yet. So they provide help just to help us for easy transitioning towards the certification. The certification itself, as much as ISMS is concerned, only a few approved certification agencies currently assess companies about ISMS, but fees are not much more than against other standards. So implementation, the cost depends largely on the health of IT within the organization. If as a result of a risk assessment or audit, a gap appears, then implementation costs are bound to go up based on the solution implemented. Now, what this is talking about is if a gap assessment upon trying to do implementation of ISMS, the gap assessment now showcase that there are so many areas in the organization that we need to fill in. There are so many tools that we need to get. So in that regard, there's so much money for the organization to spend on such implementation. But then if there are existing tools already, definitely there are just a few things for one to add in order to make sure that such implementation is being addressed. So roles required or who to be involved. Now we have primary stakeholders, we have secondary stakeholders, we have lead implementers, we have top management, we have information security or governance staff, we have the IT departments or suppliers, we have the internal auditors, we have the data protection officer. So these are the roles of persons that we need during the course of this implementation. So I think we've gone to the end of this conversation. So I want to ask us a question. So which process model does 27001 adopt? Which process model? And let me be looking at the comment section. C. Okay. All right. Interesting. C. Oh, Jennifer said V. Who said V? Okay. Elizabeth said V. It is C. All right. That's fine. That's fine. That's C. All right. Plan, do, check, that. Then 2, what is the term that provide guidelines for selecting and implementing information security controls? The second question, what is our answer? Toby said B. Akim said B. All right, B. So B is the answer. Is information security control. Is it B or A? So our answer for number 2 is A. Our answer for number 2 is A because it's a guideline. 27002 is a guideline that help us to address information security controls. As I said, the clause 8 of the 27001 is the same thing as 27002. So it's a guideline to address those controls. 2 is B. Then 3 is before implementing ISO 27001, one needs to consider the dash. A, cost and project length. 2, costs and threats. C, risk and threats. What's our answer for number 3? C, risk and threats. Interesting. Interesting, risk and threats. Okay, so the answer to this is costs and project length. Costs and project length. Most organizations do not want to implement the standard because of the costs. And why? Because after conducting gap assessment, and they realize that there are multiple tools that they need to acquire in order to really align with what the standard is saying, it becomes a challenge for such an implementation. And also the project length also becomes an headache, as the case may be. Right. So I think this is the end of the class. So this is the time we can entertain questions from you, everyone. Mr. Adeleke Ayodeji, you have a question for us. Okay, Mr. Peter said, aside certifications, can someone with theoretical knowledge on most of the ISOs, but little skills be eligible to be called an analyst? Or what's, because I've seen different people with knowledge, but no skill. So first thing first, the knowledge. All right, good afternoon. Sorry, Mr. Adeleke, just hold on. Let me quickly answer this question from Peter. Yeah. So if you have the knowledge without the skill, I think there's a misalignment there. when there is knowledge and there is no skill, because how can we apply the knowledge? It's through skills that we can apply the knowledge. So we need to also make sure that we look into that. For those that have the knowledge of it, they should have the skill also to carry it out, as the case may be. So is a person qualified to possess such certificates? The question is, anybody can get the certificates, but then when it comes to when it comes to proper implementation is not just about certification. So when it comes to certification, someone might not really, maybe financially, they are not buoyant enough to get certification, but then they've trained themselves over time to understand what the standard requires, and they know exactly the nitty-gritty. But then in another way, nobody will know you that you know anything except you are certified. So certificate also plays a long role also in this regard. So once you have the certificate and you have the required skills and knowledge, then you're good to go. All right, Mr. Adeleke, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for the wonderful section. I just need a bit of confirmation. I observed something from all the ISO management systems that we have gone through so far, from the quality management system, the risk management system, occupational safety and health system, and this one. It's as if they have the same number of clauses, if I'm correct. I know from the document you see clause 4, context of the organization, down like that. Is it how it should be? Is that correct? For all management systems?
So the idea behind management system, the supposedly idea behind it is management system itself has an approach which every standard aligned with, whether it is business continuity management system, whether it is information security, whether it is IT service management, whether it is 14,001, whether it is 45,001, whichever one of them, they follow the same. The idea is there's a management system. So they follow the same management system, and the approach to management system is definitely there will be a context to the organization, which is actually the first clause 4. There's clause 5, who talks about for every organization, we know there's going to be a leader. There's leadership in every organization. And when you look at 7, there is support. We need support for every activity. So what differs in all the standard, the only thing that differs in all the standard is the clause 8. Is the clause 8 that differs. And that is why the clause 8 for information security management system is the 27,002, where we address the controls. When it comes to business continuity, that's when we look at business strategies. We look at the BIAs. We look at their own aspect of risk assessment as well. So those are the areas that differentiate most of the standards together. Clause 8 is different from every other person, every other organization, every other standard as the case. So clause 8 is the difference. I don't know if I answered your question.
Are they coming?
Sir Richard, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. My question is about confidentiality while you were talking in the first lesson. And someone raised that question, which I wanted to also ask. Let's assume I'm working in a tech company, for instance. Let's say Huawei.
Okay.
And they make me to sign a process. I gain employment with another tech firm. So those are
Sorry, am I the only one experiencing a glitch? I couldn't hear him clearly. Mr. Richard, I can't hear you clearly. I can't hear you clearly. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I think we're having glitches with Richard.
secret, or those they are work with my new. That's the question, sir.
Okay. Okay, Richard, we missed you. We missed your question. Can you take that again? Because you had a glitch in your network. Please take your question again. All right, if we can't get Richard, we move to the next person. Hopefully Richard will be back to repeat his question. Next is Onyedikachi. Please, Onyedika, okay. Onyedika, please proceed to ask your question.
Okay. Thank you for the lecture. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes,
Okay.
clearly.
I want to ask, like, is it that every company is supposed to have maybe somebody that can implement this in the firm, or maybe it is being outsourced? Then another thing again I want to ask is that, is it compulsory for somebody to maybe undergo cybersecurity training before it can really be, as in before the person can really start implementing all this, like becoming a professional in this aspect?
Okay. So if I can answer that question, there's a difference between understanding the skill and understanding how to use the skill. Now, I will say this as a cybersecurity enthusiast, as an ethical hacker. Now, I can come around with some, I can decide that, okay, I want to conduct vulnerability assessments for, maybe I just want to see certain weakness within the organization and make use of some open source tools, as the case may be. And based on that assessment, I can realize that I am seeing some vulnerability. Yes, I have the skill to, go into those applications and see those faults, those vulnerabilities. But then I still don't know how to interpret those vulnerabilities to a layman of what exactly, how does it really apply it, as a case may be. So I might have that knowledge, but then I need to know exactly how that knowledge is applicable with regards to business. I don't know if that answers your second question. Mr. Onyedika, does it answer your second question? There's a different, when you said something, skill set versus applied skill. So there's a difference between you have range of skill sets. You can do this, you can do all those things. But then how applicable is those skills that you have on what exactly you're supposed to do? So there are two different things. So you might have a knowledge about the thing, you might have a skill about the thing, but how applicable? Most of us that went to Nigerian higher institution, there are some programming language that we make use of that we are not applying in reality. At least we make use of Visual Basic, Q Basic, and Fortran and the likes. But in the recent time that we have now, those are obsolete languages. So there's a difference between I'm a programmer, I can code VB, I can code Fortran, I can do all those things. And is it applicable in recent times? Am I applying it to whatever I am doing? If it is not applicable, then there's no point relying on soft skill. So it is only skills that will be applied or applicable to our knowledge base or whatever job function that we are carrying out in our organizations that really matters now, not just having a wide range of skill sets without making use of them. Please, can you remind me of the second question, please? Hello? Can we hear me?
Onyedika, are you still there? I think we lost him. Okay, Richard, let's try one more time to take your question. All right, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry about the other time. It was my network coverage that was bad. So what my question is that about confidentiality. In information technology, we all know that confidentiality is very important. And I cited an example that, let's assume I'm working with a tech firm, for instance, Huawei, and I get an offer with another tech firm. with a higher pay grade, and I've already acquired a lot of their secret there. So in my new workplace, if I'm making use of those things I learned from my previous workplace, won't it be like a breach of their confidentiality? That's the question, sir.
Okay, so in most cases, most organizations don't leak their secrets. So if you are opportune to work in an organization like Huawei, for instance, and you have access to some platforms or to some of their tools and things like that. Now, they won't, I have done a countless number of projects with Huawei. I'm even doing one with them about smart city projects, Lagos State smart city projects, that they, come up with a fabricated data center, as the case may be. They tend to, most businesses tend not to give you the secret as a staff. They tend not to give you the secrets to what makes them who they are. Yes, you might work with them, you might gain access to some, you might be exposed to some information as the case may be. But when it comes to the secrets that really make them who they are, I don't know about small scale enterprise, maybe a medium scale enterprise that is just fast growing. But when it comes to larger scale enterprise, they make it's necessary that their knowledge, what makes them who they are, is not given to everybody. If you're actually in a group of people that make decisions there, you will not leave. Everything you need, they will make sure they supply it to you. I think there was a time I heard something about someone that works in a bank and nobody knows this person. But then there's an agreement between the bank and this person that is a lifetime agreement. And whenever the person feels like they want to review their salary, that they want something more, the bank are ready to give the person. But then because of the criticality of what the person does, if the person leak the secrets of that bank is in 5 minutes, the bank will cease to exist. So that kind of person, you will give them whatever they need. So the information that such a person might have with regards to confidentiality, they might just be minimal information. People that have that kind of information, organization, they do everything to keep them close. Whatever terms that they want, they give them the terms. They meet up with their terms. I don't know if that's answer your question.
All right, I think that answers the question. And let's see in the chat room if we do have any questions. Okay. All right, we do not have any further questions. So thank you very, very much for being with us in class today. Dami, it's been a wonderful experience. I enjoyed this class. I learned a lot, and I believe everybody on the call did learn so much today. So thank you for being with us and sharing your time with us. Let's appreciate him in the chat box with a round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, we have come to the end of okay. Yeah, thank you. So we've come to the end of today's session. Yes, we shot beyond the time and we apologize for that, but I do believe you got value for your time. And so do have a pleasant and wonderful weekend ahead. Stay blessed, stay happy. See you next Saturday.